Randomness is supposed to be the soul of survival. It's the unpredictable world and the unknown threat. Maybe sometimes even a lucky break. But I think it's often, instead, the lazy cheating heart of it. Some games use random chance to create incredible unique stories. Others use it to just basically rob you. They take away your planning, your skill, your effort, and they replace it with nothing more than a dice roll. Today I'm putting 2 games head to head in each of the categories that we're looking at: tactics, systems, creativity, and exploration. By the end, I want to show you sometimes RNG should just be banned. Hello everybody and welcome back to OpenSplit. Today we are going to talk about RNG, random number generation, and how it can be used effectively. The tactical layer. Let's start with something very obvious: the moment-to-moment decisions of staying alive. On one side you have something like Battle Brothers, and yes, I do count that as some form of survival sim. We're gonna be a little bit loose with the terminologies here, but RNG obviously is the core of this game. Every attack has a hit chance and every strike can cause a random injury, something like a pierced lung or a shattered knee. It can be felt with every contract you take. It might lead you to a trivial bandit camp, or maybe a company-ending necromancer encounter. You are not a commander controlling units. What you are is a risk manager. You position your men to maximize a 95% hit chance, which you obviously never get. But even then, you know, these 5% could mean a dead brother. And once you're back in the town, ready to hire your next archer, you just hope his random trait isn't coward. In that sense, the game builds a brutal story-generating world where you are always reacting to chaos. Now on the flip side, you have something like Into the Breach. Well, here everything is deterministic. It's perfect information. You know exactly what your units will do. There is no chance to hit. If you have the power and the position, you will hit. The game is a pure puzzle and very fascinating because of that. Your skill is 100% rewarded and your failures are 100% your fault. You just misread the board. You didn't plan 2 turns ahead. There is no dice roll to blame. Well, almost none. Going at this from a survival sim perspective, in a tactical survival game, RNG should be a tool to simulate the friction of reality. Battle Brothers uses it to force you to think like a real mercenary captain. You plan for probabilities, not guarantees. I think the game does a very good job to have the percentages very low, so you expect to not hit. It must be part of your strategy. Your victory feels earned because you still managed the risk, not eliminated it. Into the Breach, on the other hand, removes that very friction to create a pure logic test. Your victory feels earned because you outsmarted the system, and you can see the clear difference between these 2 games. One creates a story of desperate gambles. The other creates a story of perfect calculations. Neither is wrong, but Battle Brothers proves that RNG, when woven into the fabric of risk management, then it's no longer just a design cheat. It can become the source of epic and sometimes hilarious drama. The systemic layer. Let's scale everything up, from a single battle to running a whole colony. How does randomness disrupt or define your entire system? We can take a look at Surviving Mars, because it has something that it calls mysteries. These are semi-random scripted events that drop into your colony. A spontaneous alien artifact, for example. Something like a wildfire disease on Earth that you need to solve. Or, the most exciting one, a mysterious black cube. No matter how exciting, they are all external disruptions. Your colony is a perfect machine. Domes, pipes, drones. And then the RNG throws a wrench into that. The challenge is adapting your perfect system to an imperfect random event. This now obviously stands in perfect opposition to something like Frostpunk. The Great Storm is a scripted event and it comes at a known time. Many of the events that happen, like a sick child or a missing worker, they are usually triggered by your choices, not a random call. The chaos comes from within and from the people's reactions to your deterministic laws. If you sign the child labor edict, it is that which causes the hope drop and also that which leads eventually to the protest. The randomness is the human element. The RNG is internal, moral, and based on your own decisions. That doesn't mean it has no RNG, but it is not very prominent and not the main driver of the gameplay. With that, it becomes clear that Frostpunk wins the argument. Surviving Mars uses RNG as disruption, a random test of your system's flexibility, you could say. But Frostpunk does it differently. It shows that the most powerful survival tension doesn't necessarily come from a random meteor, but from the predictable consequences of your own choices. The storm is coming, you know that. The challenge isn't what will happen, but what will I do to survive it. This means that we can remove the random disasters and make the disasters part of your own choices. Frostpunk creates a deeper and more personal kind of survival with that principle. RNG can create a challenge, but a deterministic system can create true immersion. The creative layer. So, what about building, not just surviving? Creating something to ensure survival, maybe. Let's talk about Factorio, which is sort of a survival game. I mean, you are on a planet and you need to survive. The question is, what tools do you have? Well, it uses almost no RNG. The world is fixed. Ore patches are in specific places, enemy nests grow predictably, and your factory is a perfect machine. If you build a conveyor belt, it moves items at exactly the speed you expect. If you place a turret, it fires exactly at the range you expect, with the damage you know. Survival is about optimization, about solving the puzzle of throughput and defense with perfect and always reliable tools. Now we have to look at something completely different to make a contrast. Let's talk about Rimworld and how its story engine is purely powered by RNG. Obviously there are deterministic things that happen in the world, but usually, especially if you play with Randy Random, the storyteller, having a peaceful farming colony that gets raided or hit by meteors all the time is going to be RNG. Your best doctor suddenly gets the plague. Well, tough luck. At this point, you probably could not have done anything to prevent that. In Rimworld, you are not building the perfect machine. You don't even try. What you are doing is you try to build a life raft in a hurricane of random events. The RNG generates a narrative, and the survival is surviving these random stories it tells. Even though Factorio is a masterpiece of deterministic design, I think this is the clearest case for RNG necessity if it comes to survival. Factorio isn't necessarily a story, and doesn't want to be. What it wants to be is a math problem in a survival setting. In contrast, you could say that Rimworld's entire identity, its reason for existing, is that it's random. It's a random story generator. The RNG isn't a layer on the game, it is the engine, even though it has a lot of problems. Banning RNG from Rimworld would kill it. Instead, you should probably just refine it. What this proves, however, is that for a survival game, whose primary goal is to generate a unique, emergent narrative, RNG isn't just good, it's probably even mandatory. The question isn't which is better, it's what do you want? A perfect machine or a memorable saga? Rimworld shows that for the latter, RNG kind of needs to be the author. Alright, we are getting into the last part of this video. If you stayed until now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you are excited, and if you like this kind of content, please consider smashing that subscribe button right now. Let's continue. The exploration layer. So finally, we are talking about the world itself. How does randomness define the space you actually try to survive in? And we have two very interesting, very polar opposites of that, which would be to pit Stranded Deep and No Man's Sky against each other and see what happens. Just think about it. These two games are much more similar to each other than you would first assume. Because in both games, you are basically on a ship and you are traversing a vast area of nothingness. Space in No Man's Sky and the sea in Stranded Deep. And both do RNG very differently. In Stranded Deep, the map presents itself as random. It pretends to be random. All the islands are basically the same and you can find the same things on them. Basically, all the RNG does in Stranded Deep is set up the stage. It determines the arrangement of these pre-made things that are on and around the islands. The survival itself is a manual and physical thing. You chop the trees, you craft the tools, you fight the sharks while you try to scavenge the wrecks or find clay around the island. The randomness creates only your starting situation, but the game itself concludes in giving you concrete problems to solve. Despite this being a very minimalist approach, you can see how it actually triumphs over what No Man's Sky tries to do. In No Man's Sky, everything is procedurally generated, from the planets to the creatures to the plants, not so much the resources, but you get what I'm saying. In such a randomized sandbox, you would think that survival should be about adapting to the truly unknown, but the game fails to do that. You don't have to figure out what's safe or what's valuable, what's deadly or anything like that. In No Man's Sky, RNG isn't just the stage, it's the entire play, and it lacks depth because of that. In conclusion, you can say Stranded Deep's approach is actually smarter. We can see that endless randomness will make survival feel more shallow. For exploration to feel meaningful, the world needs to present design challenges to the player. And Stranded Deep does that using RNG. It shuffles those challenges like a puzzle. It does that in a familiar setting, which boosts immersion. No Man's Sky, on the other hand, uses RNG to generate still familiar settings, despite trying so much not to. And in the end, it's just without all the challenges as a trade-off. It is for this specific reason why No Man's Sky, at least to me, never felt like a true survival experience. Okay, that is basically all I had to say about RNG. Now it comes to the final question. Should RNG be banned? To be honest, it really depends on what kind of game you are trying to make. If it's a more story and exploration driven game, you might add some of that RNG magic into it, but obviously overdoing it will risk your experience to become shallow. These are my thoughts on RNG in survival sims. Again, I want to thank you so much for staying until the end of the video. I am now very curious about your opinion. Please tell me in the comments below what you think about RNG in video games in general or specifically in survival sims. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe to the channel, like and share the video. You can also check out my own survival roguelike on Steam. But with that said, it was so nice having you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.